Hey there, folks. Greg Shepard here, S&A Financial Services. In today's video, we're talking about the RC contract over at TIAA and how you could take advantage of it, okay? Again, name is Greg Shepard. I specialize in helping folks all over the country just make sense and demystify those oftentimes confusing TIAA accounts. Okay, let's get right into it. So the RC contract, I've been contacted by a few of you over the last week or so, so I'll probably reiterate some things I've talked about in the past in some videos, but it's worth noting. RC contract. I like that illiquid contract because of the flexibility it affords you. Of course, you can flip it to lifetime income. We're talking about traditional here, okay? But the extraction strategies are a little more flexible, if you will, than other contracts. The GRA contract notwithstanding. Okay, but we're sticking on the RC contract. So, real life example here. So I ran into someone, I don't know, a week ago or so, and had money in traditional in the RC contract and was about to initiate, watch some of my videos, and was about to initiate an in-service transfer of those traditional monies over 7 years. Okay, you can do that while you're still in service, okay, to liquidate that traditional monies if you're not interested in lifetime income, okay, of which she was not. And I had her share her screen, and I looked at that page a lot of you are familiar with, where it shows your contracts and the crediting rate associated with each contract. Well, lo and behold, she did some manipulating of these contracts back in 2023 thereabouts, in a pretty good time period to start moving money into traditional if you want that conservative sleeve of your portfolio. And she was getting upper fives, 5.5, something like that, just south of 6%. And I told her, hey, that's pretty good. Okay, that's pretty good. Maybe we want to rethink the 7-year extraction, the 84-month, in-service transfer out of traditional, given that you're getting 5.5%. And I see, the bond choices that you have, because you want this money to be rather conservative. They're not good. So, have you thought about the 2.5%? If you're not looking for lifetime income, have you thought about that 2.5% surrender charge strategy at point separation of service? And she had no idea what I was talking about. Okay, so she was afraid. Afraid might be a little dramatic. I don't know what the word is. We'll use the word afraid. She was afraid that she was, gosh, excuse me, going to separate service here in about 5-ish years, and she would have all that money locked up in traditional. She really didn't know what to do with it at that time, which is very common. So her rationale, her thought process was, hey, let's just kick this into 7 years extraction. It'll be mostly extracted by the time I retire. It'll be, and then I'll kick it over to a rollover IRA, which is a very plausible, rational thought, right? So now in today's rates, right now she's retiring, separating service in about 5 years. And I told her, hey, a lot of folks are doing this right now that are separating service now. They're taking that 2.5% haircut, as they call it, which is a penalty. Give TIAA 2.5%. You roll it over to something because that liquidates that traditional money immediately. You take that money over to a rollover IRA, and you get into income-producing things that are right now getting 7, 8, 9% interest. You're made whole. You can do the math. I don't know, 4, 6 months, something like that. Which is great right now. We don't know what the interest rate environment is going to be at that time, but you're always going to shoot 6% or north thereof when the time comes. So again, she had no idea this existed, and so I talked her into. I didn't talk her into it. We just had a intellectual conversation, and the conclusion was we're going to keep that money in traditional, okay, and it's going to grow. It's 5+% each year, and then she'll take that 2.5% penalty charge, and she'll still be ahead. All right, and then if she wants to do that at the time, kick those monies over to a rollover IRA. Again, she had no idea this existed. And by the way, this strategy exists on the GRA contract as well. Second, maybe point or scenario I ran into is that, again, kind of on the same topic, kind of an ancillary tangent here, is that we're using the same contract because right now, gosh, new deposits going into RC 5.25%, I believe, in April. You can fact check me on that, but I think it's 5.25. How long is that going to last? I don't know. I didn't think it would last this long. So, and they reset that rate every month, or they keep it the same. Okay, on new deposits going in. So the RC contract now is at 5.25%. I think on new deposits. So for a lot of folks, a few folks, I don't want to be too dramatic here, we've put money into traditional in the RC contract. I've spoken about this before, okay? So forgive me for those that have heard this time and time again. Put new money into traditional, of which they wouldn't have before because they were afraid of the illiquidity aspect, but they weren't aware of the 2.5%, we'll call it surrender charge strategy. So I said, hey, you got 8 years left to work. Let's take advantage of that illiquid contract, get 5.25% on new monies going in. I won't get into I won't open a can of worms here, but you're going to get that rate, a version of that rate, okay? Now until separation of service, that's 8 years down the road. We can kind of do some math. It's not going to be perfect as to how much you'll make, and then you take off 2.5%. You're going to be well ahead of the game, and compare that to all these bond choices or lack thereof that you have in your plan. This seems to be the better option, okay? If you're not interested in lifetime income, all right? So, like I said, a lot of folks, some folks, we've dumped money into the contract, RC, with the knowledge that it's illiquid, getting that 5.25% for 8 years in theory, okay? One scenario. So it makes sense for them, and they like that idea. And so I guess the moral of the story here is just make sure you know all the strategies before you start implementing some thought idea that you think is correct. Just make sure you have all your ducks in a row. A lot of cliches I can use, right? A lot of folks sleep on this 2.5% surrender charge strategy, especially right now. It's a fairly advantageous strategy to implement if not interested in lifetime income. Again, for a time frame here, we're April of 2025 for those of you that are watching it in the future here. Okay, Greg Shepard, that's all I got today. Greg Shepard here, S&A Financial Services. If you got questions on your TIAA situation, contact me below. I'll get you squared away. Y'all take care. Bye-bye.